Yeah, and at the moment, Antonio Felix da Costa in P2, currently doing a 32.4 versus James Allen on a 34.5, so approximately 2 seconds difference. Could of course be traffic, but if the cars behind him that have changed tyres are going 2 seconds a lap quicker, we could see them all merge together by the end of the stints.
Yeah, and then you have to start crunching the numbers and thinking, right, we can do around 10 laps a stint, and so 10 laps, and we're losing 2 laps per, we're losing 2 seconds per lap, so that's 20 seconds in total, but actually it takes us a little bit longer to change the tyres. It's around 24 seconds, so it's not much in it.
No. Of course, both da Costa and James Allen have got different tyre manufacturers as well, so many variables in there.
So Will Stevens did stay aboard the Jackie Chan DC car, and the tyres stayed on that 37 machine as well. Drops to 8th spot in LMP2. Just a reminder, 2.8 seconds separates our leaders. The Toyota 8 ahead of the Toyota 7, and they have about 90 second advantage over Bruno Senna in the 1 Rebellion, and they are 1 minute ahead of their sister car. Nat Berton is in the 4th place machine with Baikoles, and Tom Dillman sitting in 5th position. Good to have all 5 of our LMP1 runners running cleanly at the moment, although the Baikoles is one lap down already, and then you get to the first of the LMP2 cars. In GT Pro, Miguel Bonilla leads in the Aston Martin, in the EF Corsa, from Maxime Martin in the Aston Martin by just 2.3 seconds. Alejandro Pierguidi in 3rd, and Marco Sorensen in 4th position. And there is confirmation of the gaps after 34 laps of racing here, which is equivalent to about 2 hours here at the Circuit de la Salle. For the moment, weather is fine and fair. There is showers around the area, but for the moment it hasn't hit us here in the paddock, and it is likely that if it does hit us, the weather is going to hit from Mulsanne first.
Just looking further down the order, great to see the 2 IDEC cars obviously on the grid, and I was just looking at Patrick Pilet's lap times, and bear in mind that this guy is a Porsche GT expert, works driver for Porsche for many years, hasn't driven anything other than a Porsche since 2006, and drafted in at the last minute for Dwight, who had an accident on Thursday, unfortunately, and his last lap was a 3:32.6. which is pretty similar to the leaders. So that's just shows the mark of the man. And you know, you put a really good, experienced works driver into any car on the grid, give them a few laps, and they're on the pace.
Oh, that's what Peter said yesterday, wasn't it? A car's a car.
Yeah, 4 wheels and a steering wheel. Drivers are just the pedal bracket, aren't they? They connect the wheel to the pedals. Spacer, yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice to see those cars gradually come up the order a bit. Of course, they started a full lap down, didn't they?
Yes.
From the pit lane.
Which I think they're still a lap or 2 behind, but I think they've overtaken the GT cars, haven't they?
The winning car from the last 2 years, Signatech Alpine, into the pits, off sequence and at the tail of the LMP2 field because of issues with that car very, very on in the race. Had a slight water leak, water pressure problem, and potentially damaging the engine by doing so. And really, really sad to see them at the tail of the field. It will not be a Signatech Alpine win. The last 2 years, it's always been Nicolas Lapierre, the kind of the star of that show. He's moved on as well to Cool Racing.
22 hours left, mate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anything can happen.
We had a flash of yellow flag for a second at Marshall Point 3, which is the entrance into the first chicane, but whoever made a mistake down there has cleared themselves out the way and got themselves back going again. Sebastian Bouemi pulling a slight advantage over Mike Conway on this particular lap. Last time it was a little tighter, but I think that might just be the traffic and how they're catching them so much faster, these LMP1 hybrid cars, to anything out there on the field. Around 10 seconds a lap faster than the LMP2 cars, as we're on board with Bouemi. We observed last night how close Mike Conway looked to the steering wheel, but actually Bouemi looks pretty close to the steering wheel as well. And when we saw the Toyota hybrid machine of the future driving a lap around the circuit a little bit earlier on, Alex Wirtz was in the car, and such was his frame. His helmet was hanging over the roof. I'm not sure they build cars for tall people at Toyota, and even a small person like Mike Conway seems to be very crammed in the cockpit.
Bouemi, I think, could be on his in-lap here. If not, then he's going to do one more, whereas Conway's only done 3 laps, so that's the old fuel difference is quite a bit between those 2 cars. So from Conway's point of view, it's nice that he's so close because he will inherit the lead again.
Yeah, and that offset has been forced onto them by a puncture that they had on lap 14 of the race.
So yeah, Bouemi into the pits this time, scheduled stop. 11 lap stint.
And there then, the number 7 of Mike Conway, re-inheriting the lead again. It is really advantage number 7 at the moment. They have had less of the issues, like one puncture for the moment separating the 2 cars, but as we just said, we're only 2 hours in, plenty of things can happen. A faultless run at Le Mans is rare, that is for sure.
So the mechanics just checking all the radiator ducts, brake ducts, one guy cleaning the screen, one guy changing the water bottle, and the other guy is doing the fueling. A
little bit of heat coming out the front right brake, I presume, there. It'll soon clear once they get going again, but perhaps a concern.
So quad stint then for Bouemi, stays in the car.
So a quad stint these days in one of these is 2 hours though, isn't it?
No, we're past the 2 hour mark, aren't we? So 2 and...
2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Yeah. 2.5, yeah.
Yeah.
There's Mike sitting on top of the wheel.
He really does, doesn't he? So that has got a really big head. If somebody drew that for me, I'd say, no, you've got your proportions out of the way. I think you've got the helmet too big.
Now, what happens when he gets a snap of oversteer and your hands are that close? It's yeah, a strange feeling.
Yeah.
You see the NASCAR drivers driving that kind of, but
yes.
They don't tend to oversteer much.
And they've also got a massive steering wheel, so their arms are kind of wider than their shoulders, whereas Mike's got a tiny spoon to use as a steering wheel.
To be fair, it's working for him. Quick lad. He's,
he's no complaints.
Back in the lead of the race. And this is the stint where he could, if he has a good stint, actually make it into the pits and back out again before Bouemi passes and stay in the lead of the race.
So, looking at Romain Roussinov in the 26 LMP2 car in 6th position right now. His teammate, or not teammate, G-Drive Racing by Algarve. 2 different teams running those 2 G-Drive Racing cars. Nick Tandy in the pits. Now, is that a scheduled stop? It's his 5th stop. That seems not quite right there.
We just have a look.
Have a look at your strategy computer. But
also out the pit lane, Paul Lafarge. That, I think, is his first lap in the car since his crash, no? No, he ran in the warm-up.
Yes, the 16 car, Nick Tandy. So no, that's a short stint again, 7 laps. So that car hasn't completed a full stint on any stints yet. So it's done like a 7 and an 8, a 6, a 6 and a 7.
That sounds like a fuel pickup problem to me. Or they're really unlucky and they're getting punches each stint, but I doubt that.
Not when we're 5
for the lead.
In. Ferrari versus Aston Martin, and Aston Martin now ahead with Maxime Martin. When we started this stint, they came out together, but it has taken a while to get up to speed for Maxime Martin. The gap was up to about 4 seconds, but now the Aston Martin has found its pace.
He took 2 seconds out of him, Molina, in the last lap.
Yes, yeah, it was a slow lap for Molina on the last lap. And now Molina can sit and take away a bit of a slipstream from the car ahead of him. Those 2 about 6 seconds to the good over Alejandro Puig, who's 3rd in Pro right now in the 2nd Ferrari. And he has a decent advantage over Marco Sorensen in the Dane train, sitting 4th in class. As we've said before, concern for Porsches. down 5th and 7th in the GT Pro class right now, although we did report a puncture for the 92 car.
I mean, let's be honest, they're nowhere. One's nearly a minute behind and the other one's nearly 40 seconds behind after a couple of hours of racing. This is great to see the Aston and the Ferrari fighting here for the lead, but we're used to seeing 6 or 8 GT cars
stuck
in a
together,
line
yeah,
at this point of the race. So we can see the third place car just back there in the background.
He's also running quicker. A further, what, 3/4 of a second quicker than the fastest GT Pro in front of him.
So we want them to keep fighting, and then hopefully he catches up to make it a 3-way battle.
Then it's game on.
I'm not quite sure why the 95 Dane train Aston is some 20-odd seconds back, where something happened to them.
I'm not sure either. Let me just check.
Check that computer.
Sophia Flörsch in the number 50, the all-red machine, ahead of Memo Rojas in the Dragon Speed 21. That's the battle for 12th position. And for the moment, they are somehow leading the Bicoles through the Porsche curves. You would expect an LMP1 car to be significantly faster through here than the LMP2 cars, but Tom Dillman finding it tricky to get past those guys right now. Let's go down to Alex, who's been checking in at G-Drive Racing by Algarve. It can't do a full stint, Alex.
No, they can't. They've got an issue with the fuel collector on car 16.
And that means, as you quite rightly said, they can't do a full stint on fuel.
So you have a collector, which is the collector is inside the fuel tank. So you've got your bag tank, which sits just behind the driver, carbon Kevlar chassis, obviously with a carbon fiber Kevlar bag tank, and then inside the tank is the fuel collector, which is where the fuel lines to the engine collect the fuel from the tank. And it's not very big. It varies from sort of 1 to 2 to 4 litres, depends what you can change it, actually, the size of it. And they're obviously having a problem with the fuel going from the tank into the collector, and that's why they're unable to do the full stint. And could be many reasons for that. Could be... Hang on, team radio.
Change of plan, we will box this lap. Change of plan, we will box this lap. Due to the other car coming in, we'll box this lap.
There you go, change of plan due to congestion in pit lane. So Memo Rojas having to come in a lap early, is that, Peter, on the strategy computer? Due to the fact that the other one has to come in right now. Presumably it has done its full stint, the other one being Hendrik Hedman in the 27 car.
I'll just check that.
So going back to that fuel, I think that's probably surge. It's probably when the car is under load in pulling 2, 3, 4G in the corners, it's not picking up all the fuel. So as the tank goes down and you get to your last sort of 20, 30 litres, they're unable to pick it up.
But that doesn't sound like something that can be
It's not
fixed.
a quick fix, no.
And also, it's not something that you can fix whilst continually going round. So are they just going to do 6-lap stints for the rest of the race? It's all they seem to be able to do right now.
They might be coming up, teams quite often have to come up with a plan of how are we going to tackle this, because it's a big job. In the passenger's footwell part of the car, there's like a hatch, a little sort of porthole hatch. Because it's a fuel tank, it's obviously got quite a few bolts on it, and you've got to unbolt all of that. Then there's an access panel into the tank, and then they've got to access the collector. Well, that's not a 2-minute job, because bear in mind, they don't actually know what the problem is until they get to it.
Maybe wait for a safety car or something like
Yes.
that to perhaps have the opportunity to not lose so many laps.
Well, not just a safety car. I think it has to be a considerable accident where there's, you know, considerable barrier repairs, and then they know, okay, we've got a good 20 or 25 minutes. And that means the cars are going round in 10 minutes instead of 3 minutes 30, buys them some time.
So confirmation from what we heard that Hendrik Hedman in the 27 Dragon Speed car into pit lane, and therefore, well, actually, I thought we were saying, Memo, you need to come in now, but actually, Hedman has come in before. Let's now head over to Jotorsport. Antonio Felix da Costa on the radio. P2 right now, 15 seconds behind James Allen.
2 more laps after this one. You good on the left front? Yeah, I'm good. Nice, copy that.
So they've got a slight worry, not a worry, but he's just double checking is the left front okay. So that's obviously their weakest link, let's say, of the 4 tyres. And he's just confirming, Antonio just saying, yep, all good, all good.
All good for the moment. That then means that they'll take those tyres on to the next stint.
James Allen still in the lead, and you know, some 15 seconds up the road, the pace is good. Remember, he didn't change tyres.
Yeah, exactly. Still doing 33s. Antonio Felix da Costa 32.8 last time through. United Autosports, well, Van Uitert doing a 32.3. Philip Hansen, a slow lap perhaps in traffic, 36.0 on the last lap. But that's where Peter's strategy computer is much better than ours, giving us average lap times for all the drivers.
What would you like to know?
Who's going to win?
Let me just check the computer.
Toyota.
Rebellion.
So Molina then, having been passed by Maxime Martin, hasn't been dropped by the Aston Martin, able to stick with him.
And Pierre Guidi in the other AF Corsa Ferrari 488 is coming. Some 5 seconds behind now, was 7, and currently lapping a little bit quicker than Molina, but not much. But expect to see those 3 perhaps together sometime soon.
A quick look at Patrick Pilet there in the... It's a nice colour, that blue. It's very Algarve Pro, as we said on Thursday, but that's the IDEX Sport 17 car that was rebuilt after its accident at karting. And Pilet, as we've already said, brand new to LMP2. They did a bit of prototype testing for Porsche, but ultimately jumping from a GT Porsche into an LMP2 car and getting straight on the pace. There is Pierre Guidi in 3rd position. He has an advantage of 16 seconds over Marco Sorensen in the 95 Aston Martin. And as you say, he is faster than the 2 cars ahead.
His, where is he? Oh, my computer's moved. I'm sure I read somewhere that, here it is. Yes, he's half a second on average faster than the 2 ahead of him.
Yeah, that's about right, because he was 7.5, he's now 5.6, so he's eking away over the last 4 laps.
Bit of traffic there.
Also quite nice to sometimes run on your own. You can just focus on your own race. Because you're not battling with another driver, you tend to look after your tyres a little bit better as a driver. You're just focusing on being smooth and consistent. You've only got to worry about the LMP cars overtaking you. And, you know, sometimes when you're in that battle with another car, you're really pushing the boundaries a little bit. So also probably good for tyre wear for Pierre Guidi.
So if he can get those 2 AM cars out of the way when he gets to them nice and cleanly, then he will gain some time, because I think both the Aston and that Ferrari there were held up.
The Inter-Europol competition LMP2 car getting through that traffic. René Binder aboard that kind of pale yellow-green thing, getting through all of the GT cars. Here is the 91 car. Richard Lietz is just half a second behind Jeffrey Siegel in the WeatherTech machine.
Gives you an indication of how far back they are on the battle for GT Pro honours, with the lead cars down in the Porsche chicane by now.
And
Porsche cars.
Siegel getting past one of the AM Ferraris. Can the Porsche do that before? Yes, before the braking zone into Indianapolis. So the battle continues. The pursuit continues.
Of course, we could see the tide swing when the rain comes with the Porsche.
Yeah. And it is very much a when the rain comes. We don't know when the rain's coming, but it's not really an if. We'd be incredibly lucky if we get rain-free throughout the whole of this race. There is Rain all around us. Friends 2 hours to the south and friends 2 hours to the west. All having very, very bad days in France. But here at the moment, actually, the sun's just come out in our commentary box. We're going to have actually might get a very, very sexy sunset if that sun is able to catch a few of the clouds that are still hanging around. That's what the cameramen want, the photographers want.
We will see those photographers come back to that tyre wall and line up to take that picture for sure.
Because they missed out on Thursday night. They were lining up a beautiful, clear sundown. It was falling just behind the start finishing straight, and all the photographers were there ready to capture the picture. And by the time the session had started and the cars had got round to the Ford chicane, unfortunately the sun had gone down. Still very orangey light, September light, adding a different feel and mood to this 88th running of the Le Mans 24 Hours, the second time it's been run in September.
So Richard Leeds gradually closing up to the back of that WeatherTech car. Jeffrey Siegel at the wheel. And that's a fight for what, sixth and seventh place in GT Pro.
With Oliver Platt in 8th position in GT Pro in the Rizzi competition Ferrari. That actually is only about 4 seconds behind this little group.
They've kind of fallen back a bit because, as we saw before the last stop, both of the Porsches seem to be, you know, in the last two places, the 7th and 8th. But then the kind of Porsches jumped up again. But as you say, Jamie, Porsche renowned for being fairly good in the wet weather.
We just saw on the TV there the Rebellion top speed at the moment, 348 kilometers an hour. That is some 216 miles an hour. Quite an impressive top speed. Bear in mind, those are the sort of top speeds, well, a bit higher we used to see when the Mulsanne was one long straight. Of course, now split up into 3 sections.
And on this iteration, I think we are about 1 kilometre an hour off the record. The record is just shy of 350 kilometers an hour. And so perhaps with a slipstream, one of those Rebellions could do it and get the record.
Oh, easy. Once the track's rubbered up, honeymoon period tomorrow morning, much cooler temperature because it's actually quite muggy and warm at the moment. You've both got a sweat on, I can see on your forehead. So, yeah, in the morning, early hours, honeymoon, new set of boots and a rubbered up track, as long as it's not raining then, easily touching 350.
In the pits, the 25 Algarve Pro official car of John Falb. And they are here by dint. I thought they're by dint of a qualification from winning something, but actually by the looks of things, I can't find that piece of information now.
So still on this battle in GT Pro, the issue with Richard Leeds has got is that he is quicker over a lap, but he's just not quick enough on the straights to pull up behind the Ferrari, and he can't pull the move.
Jeff Segal, obviously a very experienced driver here as well as America, but so is Richard. So
there's a little BOP change overnight. Apparently the Porsche had an enlarged fuel tank
by
slightly.
1 litre.
Yeah, so the wet weather, that could come in. That could mean that they could do one more lap. If we had a long wet period during the night, it could mean the difference between, say, 14, 15 laps to 16 laps before needing to pit.
A pit stop change for the LMP2 category leader, James Allen, jumping out of that car finally. And let's see who he hands over to. That, of course, will change things in that category as we have a look at United Autosports. That is the 22 machine. And there is G-Drive with Roman Rusinov. So all of our top 3 LMP2 cars getting serviced right now. And don't think we'll see Phil Hansen get out of the 22, but I think we will expect to see James Allen swap to one of his teammates in the 39 machine, Vincent Capelliere or Charles Milesi. are his two options. And it's Vincent Capillier who is now aboard the Graf machine.
Tell you what, that's a good stint from James Allen. You know, he's got some pretty good company around him. Will Stevens, ex-F1, Da Costa, Formula E champion. Who else was there?
Verne was up there at one point.
Verne and Albuquerque.
Alex
Brundle. These guys have all been around. They know what they're doing. They're bloody quick. And hats off to James Allen. He's done a good opening stint.
Have we seen anybody else in that 37 car yet? Has Will Stevens been in that car since the beginning of the race? I feel like he has.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
But he's slightly out of sync, isn't he?
So he must be due for a stop again. Mind you, yeah, he's due for a stop fairly soon.
oh, you got the computer.
Yeah, let me check. I'm not as advanced as Alan McNish in these matters.
He's getting used to it.
Well, what we should see now is that Philip Hansen, who obviously took on tyres at the last stop, not this one, versus James Allen, who obviously built up a big gap because he had a shorter stop. So those two cars were first and second, and now we should see them together. There they are. Or is it the other United car? It's the 32 car. So that's, yeah, that's...
I think that still owes us a stop.
So Will Stevens
has
got about 2 laps to go.
Okay.
2.5 laps to go until he needs to stop, which would then vault Da Costa into the lead.
So all of our LMP2 cars now have made their 4th stop, as we take a look at Rebellion with Nat Bertrand in the 3 car getting a service. And it leaves Will Stevens in the lead of the category under 37, ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa in the Jota 38 car. Big gaps between the two of them right now, with United in 3rd position and Graf, by dint of doing a full service on that 39 car, now in 4th, ahead of Phil Hansen in 5th in the United Autosports. And Rusinov stayed aboard the G-Drive car in 6th spot. Back on board the Porsche with a LMP2 car between him and his target, the WeatherTech Ferrari, and 6th position. Oh, and will he get it a little bit compromised? It was okay. And those are our LMP2 leaders coming through that little battle right now. I shouldn't call him Vincent. He's, of course, being French, he's Vincent Capillier in LMP2. So just 2 cars completely stopped, and we think both fully out of this race right now. Thomas Preening was caught out in a shunt at the first corner in the 88 Dempsey Proton machine, and rear-ended the car into the barrier, and obviously too much damage to the rear end to be able to continue. Eric Maris had a very strange kind of fall off the track at the S's, through the gravel, and then stopped when he could have rejoined on the circuit. He is also still shown as stopped and out of the race. All other cars at the moment are still running, 57 of our 59. Rebellion
so,
number 1 is in the pits, and it is Bruno out of the car. Is that Norman Nato getting in? It's Mr. Menendez.
Gustavo, yeah.
Bruno Senna on the in-lap. Was that on the in-lap? Did his fastest first sector of the race? No.
Yeah. No, I think when he's in the pit lane, you get the best sectors, that's why.
Yeah.
So he's obviously the quickest car in the first sector.
Which is what we saw, actually. We saw that Rebellion were about 3 to 4 tenths faster than Toyota in the first sector, but then lose it through the rest of the lap. Just the characteristics of the power delivery of that car.
Well, they don't deploy the hybrid. So they've got 900 horsepower, 500 from the engine, 400 from the hybrid, but they're not using the hybrid power in the first sector.
Waiting for this car to owe us a pit stop, and in comes Mike Conway. Now, we would expect him to be jumping out the car now, having done his quad stint.
So it will be interesting to see when this car leaves the pits whether it retains the lead or whether it falls behind the number 8 car again.
The gap was just under a minute as he came into the pit, so I think it would be close, but I would expect 7 to fall just behind 8. And Conway jumps out. Kobayashi is the man who's jumping aboard.
That was a tasty stint from Conway, wasn't it? Opening stint.
Yeah,
very good.
I think solid job.
As you'd have come to expect from Mike.
He did get held up on that in lap though. You see, with the Porsche, he had to go around it. He wanted to pull the move early in the Porsche cars, but thought against that then and had to go around the outside. Cost him a good 2 to 3 seconds, I would have thought.
So there is the 8 car coming across the line. Now, I suppose if this is a full service for Mike Conway, yes, he will definitely fall behind because it's going to be a slightly longer stop than we're used to seeing from Toyota with the double stinting.
But he's done tyres as well and driver change,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that was a longer stop than normal.
So on the next stop for the number 8 car, they will have that situation.
Yeah. Interesting for me is that Michael Christensen in the 92 Porsche, just on his way out the pit lane, he's the first of the GT. He was the last of the pro cars and the first to stop.
Okay.
You can have a little look at that.
He is number 92.
Black and white flag for 75 for abusing track limits. We're getting that quite a bit. We've seen quite a few cars cutting the Ford chicane, and also on the second chicane I've seen a few cars do it. Eduardo Freitas just giving them a little warning. If they do it again, of course they will receive a penalty at their next stop.
Yeah, and they have been stringent and strong with that throughout the whole of our free practice sessions so far, and so expect those penalties to accumulate throughout the race. In the dark hours, less penalties because it's harder for the judges of fact to see exactly where the cars are, but in the daylight hours, for sure.
So with Michael Christensen, yeah, the Porsche obviously decided to oh no, he had a puncture.
That's why.
He did 10 laps, had a puncture, came in,
So he's out of
14. So he's done a full stint of 14 laps and must have just pitted.
Fastest lap of the race so far, Bruno Senna with a 3:19.28.
Yeah, I noticed that Bruno has the ultimate first sector. Mike Conway has the ultimate third sector, but somebody else has the ultimate middle sector. Nice little spread.
Very wide on the exit to Mulsanne corner, that P2 car.
For the moment, it's kind of settling down. If you look through the timing screens, the closest battle that we have right now is actually Sophia Flörsch. She's sitting in 13th position, just behind Roberto Lacorte. And that, I mean, a battle for 12th spot, but only half a second separating those two right now. So for those of you who are familiar to watching the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and you would expect sundown to be around 10:30 in the evening, well, tonight, being September, it's more like 8:30 that we're going to get that glow, or actually earlier than that, wasn't it? It was about 7:45 we start to get the really orangey glow, and gets completely dark by about 8:30, and then we'll be plunged into darkness all the way through to around 7:30 in the morning. And by that point, I don't think we're going to get a sunrise because there'll certainly be some rain. Side by side, you saw the LMP2 car trying to hang it out on the outside there through the window, but Kobayashi easily clear.
Kobayashi currently got a dark visor on, as you can see. That will probably be changed to a light-coloured visor or a clear visor by the next stint for him.
Still battling away this 5th and 6th place between Segal and Leitz. The Porsche just unable to live with the Ferrari in a straight line, but ultimately maybe slightly quicker over the lap time. But the Ferrari seems to be very trimmed out rear wing wise, and just seems so quick in the last sort of 300-400 meters. So you're always, as a driver for Leitz behind, he's always coming from a long way back, and that makes it very difficult. So probably going to have to rely on a bit of traffic going his way.
Of course, well, Olivier Pla is closing right up behind him.
Yes.
So, and of course he's going to have the stronger engine, so he's going to have to attack and defend at the same time.
Fastest lap, I think, for LMP2, just done by Ben Hanley, handy little driver, and in the Dragon Speed car, 31.72. He's one of the pros in that car.
Now, Tim Fulbrook on Twitter making a very good point to us and the team. Thank you for tweeting us. Mine is at Ben Consti. Our Lovejoy for Peter Dumbrick, and he says at the current pace of 17 laps an hour, the Toyotas will smash the distance record by an entire 11-lap stint. Well, number one,
until it rains.
We haven't had any. We haven't had a safety car yet. You know, usually we'd have something going in the first couple of hours, but we've had very clean running. I'm being shot for tempting fate. And of course, we haven't had the rain that is ultimately expected. So I don't think this is a year where we were expecting to see that.
Peter, do you want to announce your Twitter account as well, just while we're on there?
Yes, it's Lovejoy.
Lovejoy. Don't go on very often, though, do you?
Pierre Guidi with a black and white flag, about the 10th driver so far to receive a black and white flag. These boys are being pretty naughty with track limits at this stage of the race anyway. Eduardo is not taking any prisoners, is he?
No, and that's good. We saw in qualifying, what was it, almost a dozen laps being eliminated in our hyperpole just for track limits.
Yeah. So Leitz in the pit lane. This is one of the chances he's obviously got to make a move on that 71 car is by being quicker in the pit. And all these cars, slightly different fill times. You can see the fuel man on the front of the Porsche. Obviously, the Porsche is a rear-engine car, so fuel filler at the front. You can see the tyre guys on the left, one with the wheel, one with the gun. You are only allowed 2 guns at the pit stop, and you are allowed 2 men per gun. So 4 of them will cross the line once the refueling is finished, and they will go to work, and the car will go up in the air, and you'll have a quick tyre change, and Richard Leitz will be on his way.
And they actually are going to change just the left side tyres on that car. As you mentioned with the LMP2 category, the left front taking the worst of it. Well, they feel like they can get away with the right-hand tyres doing another stint, but the left's not. So they did that before, and they're going to try that again. So black and white flag rather than warning, getting one step closer to getting a penalty, effectively.
No, they're all getting black and white flags. Okay. But I don't know why that was just announced on the radio for some reason.
What makes that any different?
They've all been receiving black and white flags, so that particular, I'm not sure if it's the car or driver, but I think it's that car, isn't it? If your car 71 has received a black and white, regardless of which driver does a track limit again and is reported by the marshals, will receive a penalty of some kind. Normally a 5 or 10 second hold in its next pit stop, or perhaps a drive-through if they're being particularly naughty.
Essentially, they've got to survive for the next 2-3 hours until it's fully dark, and then they can get away with murder.
Now, do we ever get to the bottom of the problem for Racing Team Netherlands? I know there'll be plenty of Dutch fans, and they were very early pitters with an engine temperature issue early doors. Seems to whatever that problem was has been solved. Frits van Aert is in the car, 22nd position for them, but the early stop 6 and lap 7 for Guido van der Garde with a temperature issue. They may well have fixed that.
So we're watching Olivier Pla gradually pulling back Jeff Segal. He was quite a few seconds behind with a Porsche in between. The Porsche pitted, and now plan and have a look and see how many laps when their pit stops are coming?
Well, sort of the 4 of them have pitted. Some of them, Maxime Martin is in the pits. Another black and white flag for car 98, Paul Della Lana, for abusing track limits. They're coming thick and fast now. These guys need to start being a bit more careful. But yeah, I think in another lap or two we'll see how the current GT Pro all unfolds. But I think the Aston will still be in the lead. And
so Pla has actually gone to the pits this lap, and this is the final lap for Jeff Segal before his pit stop.
So this is where Richard Leeks has to do a storming out lap. He has to drive like a bullet in order to hopefully jump Segal at the end of this lap.
Was that a bit of advertising of your management company?
Toyota 18 seconds apart now, but of course the lead car has got a stop to make. So in theory, Kobayashi is really the true leader of the race.
And in this GT category, we still are owed pit stops by Alejandro Pierguidi and Marco Sorensen. For the rest, they have now all pitted. No, and Jeffrey Segal also overs as a pit stop. So the Porsches are not even able to pit as late as the Aston Martins and Ferraris, even though, and then they're slightly off sequence, I think, because of the puncture, which has pushed that 92 car off sequence. But ultimately, for the moment, in these conditions, not looking fantastic for Porsche.
No, strange to see, because, yeah, like we said earlier, they were pretty good in
all weekend.
All weekend.
Great, yeah. Would it be possible, I mean, this is just off the top of my head, so they've got a slightly larger fuel tank now. If they're not using all their fuel, will they gradually keep a little bit back, and gradually fill it in, so therefore their pit stop won't be as long when they're not changing tyres?
Well, you can tell us that.
Yeah,
well, I'm going
commentator.
to ask Alan beside me, because he's pretty clever. Hang on one second.
What's interesting for me is that the 2 lead cars have still yet to pit. They've both only had 2 stops, whereas the 2 Porsches have had their 3rd stop. So I can't believe that they're just stopping short with fuel in the car for another lap. No, when they wouldn't need to.
I think the 92 got caught out and get pushed off sequence by that puncture.
Yeah, but the 91.
But the 91's doing the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, clearly looks like it is just a case of they're not quick enough in a straight line.
I don't know whether this is correct, but it looks as though both had a puncture on the same lap, according to our information. But don't know.
Oh, nearly a touch there between is that Da Costa and can't quite see that car.
Well, it's a battle for 6th position. So this is the Duquin and Panis Racing cars. Oh, and there is a Jota in there. Is that Jota in there as well?
I know it's not the Jota car, sorry.
It does look like it, doesn't it?
It's the 30 car. It's Terashenko, isn't it, at the lead of that little train. And
no, but the Jota's at the back of it. The 37 Will Stevens car is at the tail.
Ah, okay, because he stopped, and because he stopped out of sync, didn't he? So he's on the back of this train, full of fuel. Didn't change tyres, did he? So here's the leaders in GT. No. Yeah.
Pierguidi and Marco Sorensen both in pit lane. Maxime Martin therefore should inherit or re-inherit the lead in GT Pro. The Ferrari crew getting ready to attack the car with fresh Michelin tyres. There's the Aston crew. They got tyres awaiting that car as well. Not sure they do, to be honest. They might be going on separate strategies here. Ferrari are released.
Oh, the fuel's taking a long time.
And
off
now,
it goes.
Yeah, so no tyres for Aston. And now into the pits, our number 8, Sebastian Bouemi, jumping out of the car and handing over to, let's have a quick look, Is that Brendan with his day helmet on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. Because Brendan's got two completely different coloured helmets just to confuse us.
He's very tall and skinny, that's how you can tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously a previous Le Mans winner with the Porsche 919, now attempting for a second win in a Toyota.
Yeah, man has had a really kind of up and down, tricky career with things that have gone to plan for him, and then things like his Formula 1 career really that haven't gone, and his Formula E career, you know, disappearing out of Dragon without really any explanation before the final rounds in Berlin, and just kind of a little odd, really.
He was Red Bulled.
Well, he was Red Bulled with the whole Toro Rosso thing, even though he wasn't a Red Bull driver initially. He was a Red Bull driver initially, then he got thrown out of the program, then he got brought back into the program for Toro Rosso, and then he got thrown out of that program second time.
Before it even ended.
Before it even ended.
And then he found a home at Porsche, and I think he was well looked after there. They got the best out of him, and he proved that he was a good driver by winning the race, obviously, in Le Mans. And unfortunately, the Porsche program was finished, and Toyota needed a replacement for the Fernando Alonso car coming out. For Fernando Alonso leaving the car and returning to Formula 1, and Brendan seemed like the best option to slip into that car.
So out of the pits then, 1 minute 16 behind the number 7 car. And due to that puncture that they had in lap 14, it is advantage 7 right now. And really, Rebellion are out of touch for the moment. In these conditions, they just do not quite have the race pace that they need to keep with those Toyotas, and they'll be waiting for issues to give them more of an advantage, to give them more of an opportunity to perhaps stand on a step higher on the podium come 2:30 on Sunday.
Phil Hansen is caught up with the back of the Graf car in the tow on the first Mulsanne straight.
Vincent Capilliere in the So 24 by Graf, sitting in 3rd position right now. Obviously James Allen led the majority of the start of the race in this car, but has been ousted by Jota and United Autosport sitting 1st and 2nd right now, and Phil Hansen would like to bring that United Autosports car back into the position that it was early doors in the hands of Felipe Albuquerque.
I think the United car is running a little bit more downforce than the other one, because they seem to not, there's no tow effect for them. The gap just stays the same the whole way down the straight. So I think they're just running a tiny little bit more rear wing, and makes it difficult to pass.
Slightly newer tyres for Capilliere. Double stinting on the tyres that Phil Hansen has, and they've got a car coming up behind them. Didn't quite see who that was. That's going to perhaps slightly disrupt that little battle. As we switch to Antonio Felix da Costa, who has, oh yeah, Job van Uiteren.
6 tenths.
Yeah, that's really getting close now, isn't it?
Yeah, they've all come together.
He's lost 3 seconds on the last lap, Antonio Felix da Costa. So what's going on in that car as we hear from Phil Hansen? That's quite interesting. He wanted to know who was in that car, didn't he? He was concerned about who was actually aboard it.
So just looking at the strategy computer.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Oh, yeah, it's me. I'm just I was having a bit of a chat with Alan, just chatting the race through now. Yeah, but we're just seeing that da Costa is, on average, 1 second a lap slower than Van Uiteren. So that's why we're seeing him close up. Could that be Michelin versus Goodyear, or you know, the interesting thing about P2 is that obviously they cycle through the drivers. You have the silver driver in the car, who potentially would be the weakest link. And if you've got a fast silver driver like Phil Hansen, who's currently on board, he might not quite have the pace of Da Costa, but you can be pretty sure that D'Arista will do. So when he gets into the car will vault back up again.
Yeah, interesting to see how that continues to develop. It was a much faster lap from Antonio Felix da Costa on this lap through. So whatever happened on the last lap, it's been slightly equaled out by the Jota car taking another 0.8 of a second out of the United Autosports car. As we switch our attention to the second United Autosports car that we just heard from, Phil Hansen. Now 0.3 of a second between him and the Graf machine. Getting close. But as you say, it'd be nice to have a bit more of a slipstream effect, wouldn't it? He just completely stayed still all the way down the Mulsanne. Could do with a disruptor to help him get past, because clearly he's faster, and he'll be likely faster through the bits where you can't overtake.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the rear wing, and I have a feeling the United car's got a tiny bit more.
It does look like that.
And I mean, it might be an illusion, but it could be rake, it could be rear wing, and if you haven't got the straight line speed, even with the toe, you just got to get lucky with some traffic. Otherwise, you're never going to overtake him.
But remember that also Antonio Felix, Felipe Albuquerque was quite concerned in that car in the first part of the race, wasn't he? He was surprised that he wasn't able to make the moves easier in the first part on James Allen.
So when he ran in the lead on his own, he had great pace, and there was no one near him. But it's when he's running in traffic, those United cars do seem to not quite have the same pace, and it could be just setup, as you say.
It could be that they've decided to go with that because of the rain forecast.
Yeah, that would be very sensible and interesting.
Well,
Antonio Felix da Costa's team radio.
9 left, Antonio, 2 laps to go, 2 laps.
Okay, 2 laps to go before he is in the pits. And this is the second stint on these tyres, I think. Yes, it is. So maybe those Goodyears can't quite get to the end in the optimum condition that they need to.
The rain, I'm just looking at my weather app, and the rain I had earlier is sort of disappeared, and we're not having any rain now until tomorrow morning.
It's all over the place, isn't it, that radar? There's, as I say, there is rain in the area. It's just not quite hitting us yet.
Oh, but Alan's app says the opposite.
Yeah.
So, but it's changed quite a few times, hasn't it, over the last sort of few, since yesterday evening. So, I don't think they actually know. That means they just sort of keep changing their mind.
I'm seeing 72% chance at about sort of midnight, 1 in the morning.
Very unlucky there for the 32 United Autosports, just getting the Ferrari in between them and Antonio Felix da Costa, and look how that gives the advantage back to Jota. Look at the space between the two cars. He only followed that Ferrari, that GTM car, for 2 corners, but suddenly from a 0.3 second gap, we go up to a 1.6 second gap, just thanks to catching the traffic at the wrong time.
There you are, you see on the screens now, so they're both on medium tyres. Antonio Felix da Costa on 27, and the
27's a third stint, isn't it?
10, yes.
Yeah, that's a third stint on those tyres.
And the United car behind on 17, so 1 stint apart. This sort of battle, there's a battle for first and second and a battle for third and fourth. How far apart are those two battles? 19 seconds, is it? No, 17 seconds.
Yeah. But it's a United Autosport car behind another similar chassis vehicle. Oh, and that's a puncture rear left, or something missing off the rear left of the remaining Dempsey Proton car. There's 2 others, isn't there? Now, is that the 99 on Vutakorn in Thrabafa? No, Martin challenged me and I bailed on it. I think it may be, and he's just come out of the pits. So maybe a rear left wheel not necessarily bolted on correctly. There's nothing on our timing screens to suggest that there's a car running slowly.
Who's driving that Dempsey car?
I don't know, Jamie, you tell us. He was actually, Martin was reading an article, a translated article, said he is proudly the most unpronounceable driver at the Le Mans 24 Hours ever. But he's just probably known as Wutterkorn.
Wutterkorn.
Well, and yeah, if he was racing at the Nürburgring.
He does a lot in Asia.
He's Asian?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I actually have never met him, never seen, but I've heard his name mentioned so many times because my teammates in Falcon have all worked with him and they always talk about him, and now I'm seeing him in real life here on racing at Le Mans, so it's actually nice to put a face to the name. And they always call him Wutterkorn.
Wutterkorn, yeah.
Okay, copy. 2 more laps.
Anyone make out what he said?
I think he's basically saying, I just can't get past, I'm quicker, I'm catching him, and then I can't get by.
Fuel problems in the corners and pickup problems. Okay, well, he's at the end of his stint. He's got 2 more laps to go. Now, let's go down to Alex Legui, who has got updates on the number 4 car that is slipping down the order. Bicolles with an issue in the pits.
Yeah, Bicolles are very much in. Looked initially like it might be a gearbox change. Now it looks a little bit more terminal than that. Both the rear and the front are now off with a lot of road faces.
Possibly not unexpected, but a shame anyway to have issues for Bicolles. And hopefully they can get it fixed rather than it being a terminal issue. This is getting spicy now with the Porsche right in the middle of the Porsche curves. And again, the leading car manages to get a GT car in between the two, and the United Autosports car loses out slightly just by the traffic. I'm going to have to apologise, aren't I, for calling Phil Hansen the slow driver early on. What I meant to say was the silver driver within that group, because they have to have different grading for the 3 drivers, and they have to have one which is silver.
You also notice, sorry, that he's all over the back of the car in front as we see a pit stop. Da Costa out, is it? And it'll be, I think, got
and United
Gonzalez in.
So United and Jota both in the pits at the same time. I'm sure we heard the radio say 2 laps to go, but I think the radios are played out slightly in delay. That was Phil Hansen's radio, and so he is 2 laps. He's waiting for his teammate to get service, because of course look how little space there is in between these 2 cars of competing teams.
So tyre change for Jota, no tyre change for United. So the Goodyear seems to be
well, that was a third stint, remember?
3 stints, yeah. 3 stints for the Goodyear and 4 for the Michelin.
Well, that will go on to its 3rd stint this time. It was 1 stint behind.
Right. This battle here, I've noticed Phil Hansen you watch him, when he gets to the Porsche curves, he catches up so easily with the car in front, which definitely points towards the fact that he's got a bit more downforce.
But he just doesn't seem to have any luck. He always gets caught up behind other cars, and just as he's closing back up again.
Passing the IDEC 17 machine. That is down in 19th spot. IDEC 19th and 20th right now. Got a little soft spot in our hearts for them after the work that they've had to do throughout this 24 hours so far. Rebuild 2 cars on Thursday, and in such a compressed schedule, missed out with so much track running. A brand new tub for the red machine and a repaired tub for this blue car, and they had to get a new driver into the car as well. And for the moment, all going well, touch wood, for the 2 IDEC Sport machines. And yeah, look how much Phil Hansen closes in. He's got better stability under brakes. He's definitely got more downforce to carry him through the corners. But then, as we've reported already, can't do anything on the straights.
Generally speaking as well, if he is carrying a little bit more downforce, it tends to be a bit easier on the tyres.
Yeah, you're sliding around less, and so the surface of the tyre stays a little bit cooler and can tend to last a bit longer.
And also, as Jamie Campbell-Walter did allude to, if there is rain, you want as much downforce as you possibly can have to stick you to the ground.
I'd imagine during a pit stop, though, a quick wing change wouldn't be too difficult. It'd be a fairly quick thing to do. And practiced, you know.
In the old days, we used to change the gurney. Do you remember? They used to flip up the end of the end plates and then slide the gurney out, and then slide from a 5 to a 10 mil, for example. But I don't think it's fixed now, isn't it? I think.